Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be starting a new topic. The topic in question: what if Samuel Tilden won in 1876? Little background. In 1876, President Grant had completed his second term. Due to some controversies, he had become less popular. The 1876 election was between Governor of Ohio Rutherford Hayes and Governor of New York Samuel Tilden. Hayes won this election by one electoral vote. In three states, deals were made to where if Hayes ended Reconstruction, they would have voted for him. So in this timeline, let's say that in these three states, they flipped for Tilden, giving him the election. President Tilden's presidency would start out the same as Hayes's did, because he would also end Reconstruction in the South. Tilden's presidency wouldn't look too dissimilar to Hayes's presidency in our timeline. So Tilden would experience high approval ratings. With these high approval ratings, Tilden and Hendricks would easily be renominated for 1880. On the Republican side, the nomination would be between three people: Senator from Maine James Blaine, Ohio Representative John Thurman, and former U.S. President Ulysses Grant. I believe due to still having popularity in the party and around the country, Grant would be nominated for an unprecedented third term. As for running mate, he would pick James Blaine to show party unity. So in this timeline, the 1880 election would be between incumbent President Samuel Tilden and former President Ulysses Grant, running for a third term. And I believe that in a close one, Tilden would win re-election. I believe that Tilden's second term would look similar to what Grover Cleveland's first term looked like in our timeline, where he would be cracking down on government corruption. His term would be looked upon positively when 1884 rolls around. With Tilden serving his two terms, the Democrats have to pick a new candidate. I think the convention would be between Vice President Thomas Hendricks, Governor of New York Grover Cleveland, and Ohio Senator Alan Thurman. I believe that the convention would end with Hendricks being the nominee, with Cleveland as his running mate. The Republicans would have quite a few candidates for president in 1884, including Representative from Ohio James Garfield, who would not be assassinated in this timeline because he was never president, Senator from Ohio John Sherman, and Senator from Maine James Blaine. I believe that the primary would look similar to 1880 in our timeline, where Garfield would emerge as a compromise candidate, and I believe that he would be nominated. And for vice president, I believe he would pick Secretary of War and son of former President Robert Todd Lincoln. So in this timeline, the 1884 election would be between Thomas Hendricks and James Garfield. I believe that Hendricks would win this one narrowly. The start of Hendricks' term would continue Tilden's policies until his death in office of a heart attack. This was caused Cleveland to become president. Cleveland's term would line up with what he did in our timeline. So with his decent approval rating, he would get nominated for a term of his own. And for running mate, I believe he would pick Senator Alan Thurman for VP to help in Ohio. On the Republican side, without a win since 1872, they are nominating Senator John Sherman from Ohio. And for his running mate, I believe he would pick former Senator of Indiana and grandson of former President Benjamin Harrison. So in the 1888 election, it would be John Sherman versus Grover Cleveland. And I believe that Sherman would win this one. So with Sherman as president, I think his term would line up with what Harrison did, which is cool considering Harrison is his vice president. By the time 1892 rolls around, he has a decent approval rating. Nothing great, though. Nonetheless, him and Harrison get renominated. On the Democrat side, I believe that they would renominate Cleveland due to there not being many options that look great against Sherman. For his running mate, he would try to get James Weaver, but after him declining, he would pick Adlai Stevenson. Speaking of James Weaver, in this timeline, with there still being some influence from Samuel Tilden in the political landscape, and both parties putting up relatively weak candidates, James Weaver and his running mate, James Field, would perform better than they did in real life, even leading in the polls at some points. So in the election of 1892, I think Grover Cleveland would win this in a close one, winning 215, 121 to 108, still being the first person to serve non-consecutive terms. The timeline aligns here with Cleveland in office. Everything from his second term would stay the same. So by the time 1896 rolls around, the Democrats are in the same spot they were in real life, but in this timeline without William Jennings Bryan, for reasons I will bring up later. They have no real answer until Grover Cleveland shows interest in running for a third term. Everybody would pounce on this idea without really thinking it over, easily renominating Cleveland and Stevenson. On the Republican side, with Sherman deciding to retire from politics, the Republicans also don't have a strong candidate. This would cause them to nominate dark horse William McKinley, like they did in real life, with Garrett Hobart as his running mate, also like they did in real life. After their successes in the 1892 election, the populace gains more legitimacy. So when 1896 rolls around, they have their own nomination instead of partnering with the Democratic Party. They renominate James Weaver, but this time they have the rising star William Jennings Bryan as his vice president nomination. So in the 1896, I think that William McKinley would narrowly get the majority to win. This election would be a pretty even north, south, and west divide.